Well, hey everybody, how are you doing today? I hope you're enjoying your weekend. This will probably get posted on Monday, so I hope you enjoy your Monday. What we're going to talk about today is the state of affairs of action cameras in 2018, and that's coming right up. Well, you know, 2017, well, I guess I should really say the end of 2016 going into 2017 was a very unique year for action cameras. Now, everybody knows that the benchmark is the GoPro action cameras, whether it was the 4 or going into the 5 Black, and a lot of other action camera companies, they really stepped up their game regarding action cameras to really compete with the GoPro Hero 5. And here's a couple of those cameras that competed with the GoPro Hero 5 in 2017. Of course, we've got the SJ7 Star, which is using the Umbrella chipset, and it offered 4K 30 frames a second, a lot like the Hero 5. A lot of the same resolutions and frame rates. It's not voice activated like the Hero 5, but great build quality, aluminum shell on the outside, touchscreen on the back. Very, very good camera in my opinion. But before the SJ7 Star was the ThiEYE T5E, which has been around for a little while. Great camera. One of the cons about this camera, and I don't know if you can tell, but the lens protrudes out just a little bit, so it would pick up a little bit of haze. But I did a video talking about a little cure for that with a little tulip cover, and I'll put a link to that video right up here so that you can check that out. Then we have the Firefly, the 8S. Now, they came out in two versions. They came out with the 90-degree version and also the 170-degree version. So, sorry, we got cottonwood flying around. We've got the 170-degree version right here. And this one was a very good camera. This one still is a very good camera. And it competed very well against the GoPro Hero 5 at a fraction of the cost. Now, you got to remember, the Hero 5, when it came out, was $399, and it was just up until a few months ago it got dropped down to $299. So the majority of us consumers, we got it for $399. So that's some of the cameras that were competing with the GoPro Hero 5. Now, I'm not including the ThiEYE 4K Plus in this, even though they were the first ones that came out with 4K at 60 frames a second and 4K 30 frames a second with image stabilization. There's a reason for that I'm not, because the camera broke on me, so I'm not going to include it, and I'm not going to rant about ThiEYE not taking care of it. So we'll just move on. Then comes the GoPro Hero 6 Black. 4K, 60 frames a second, 4K, 30 frames a second with electronic image stabilization. And I've got to really admit, the GoPro Hero 6 is hands down got the best electronic image stabilization out there. But there was some competitors that came out in early 2018. ThiEYE T5 Edge. Now this camera, 4K, 30 frames a second, electronic image stabilization. Very nice quality, great price point, great price point. Then right after that was the Akaso V50, 4K, 30 frames a second, electronic image stabilization. Now, the image stabilization, you have to remember, when it comes to electronic image stabilization, they're cropping in the image, whether it's 10 to 20% or even just a little bit more, 22%, to give the software an opportunity to try to stabilize out some of the jitters that happen. But all in all, electronic image stabilization on these two cameras, very nice. Then we've got the ThiEYE E7 that came out. Electronic image stabilization, 4K, 30 frames a second. great image quality. Now, that's just my opinion. Now, there's a lot of people that will nitpick about color profile of cameras, and for anybody out there that has any type of camera knowledge, whether it's with action cameras or DSLRs or camcorders, every brand of camera has its own little color profile that it's strong in or it's weak in. Some of these cameras are a little bit on the oversaturated side, which is very easy to fix in post. Some of them are not so saturated, which is also very easy to fix in post. The reason I bring up this video is because I want to talk about the year 2018 and what it's really going to mean for us consumers, because there's some action cameras that are coming to market that may really play GoPro and the GoPro Hero 6 and give it a run for its money. One of them is going to be the SJ8 by a company called SJCAM. It's the SJ8 PRO. It's using the Umbrella H22 chipset, 60 frames a second, 4K, image stabilization, 4K, 30 frames a second. Then there's going to be a new offering from Firefly, and it's called the Firefly X, which is going to offer 4K, 60 frames a second, 4K 30 frames a second with image stabilization, but also the cool thing is the camera itself is going to be completely waterproof, so you will not need an external case. Now, I posted up a video yesterday regarding some housings for the GoPros and to ensure the water tightness of the camera, because I had one bad experience. So to get an action camera and make it waterproof, I think is a tough call and a tough offering to make, because there's so many little things that can go wrong, and some of them may be user initiated faults where they didn't close a drawer correctly and gave it a proper seal, or in my case it was just a bad seal in my GoPro Hero 5. So I'm really kind of curious about the Firefly 8X. Now, there's also a little bit of scuttle that ThiEYE is coming out with another camera, and that may be in the summer of 2018. But I guess the bottom line is these action camera companies for 2018, for us the consumers, improved image quality, improved chipset, improved sensors, improved glass. A lot of these new action cameras are offering 7 layers of glass, which just improves on the image quality overall. Now, the SJ8 PRO is supposed to be the best audio quality of any SJCAM action camera ever offered. And I would venture to say the same thing is going to happen with Firefly, and maybe even with the new ThiEYE camera that I just heard a little scuttle about. There's nothing on their website about it, but I saw a little post regarding the ThiEYE that they've got something up their sleeve that they're going to be coming out with. Now, I think that's great, because not to knock GoPro, I love the GoPro Hero 5, love the GoPro Hero 6. I think they're phenomenal cameras. I think their user interface on their touchscreens is very intuitive and very good for the consumers, because it gives you a lot of control over the camera. But I really think that 2018 is going to be really nipping at the heels of GoPro. GoPro came out with the GoPro Hero 2018 for $199, and I see no need to get that, because to go from 12 megapixel down to 10 megapixel, the image quality is just not as sharp, it's not as vibrant with the colors, so I'll just stick with the GoPro Hero 5 and 6 regarding GoPros are concerned. But I'm really excited about what 2018 holds, because it just shows that, and I'll give you a little background. Back in 2014, 2015 is when I first kind of got into action cameras. And I didn't want to blow that kind of money on a GoPro for an action camera that to me was so small. That's a lot of money for a small little camera when you're talking, close to $500. So I looked at a lot of the GoPro knockoff options, the SJCAM, all these different other cameras, and I was pleasantly surprised. When I first got my 5000X Elite from SJCAM, I was disappointed with that camera because the firmware was very bad. The image quality looked horrible, but you know what? They came around, they improved the audio, they improved the image quality, they improved the electronic image stabilization, and that's the thing to really keep in mind about a lot of these action camera companies, is that they are now paying attention to firmware, and they're trying to upgrade and update the firmware to squeeze out the best possible image. And yes, some of their firmwares will have a glitch in it. Same thing happens with the GoPro Hero 5 had a glitch in one of its firmwares, and they came right out and released another firmware to fix it. So, you know, that kind of stuff happens. But I think it's a great time for us, the consumers, 2018, when you consider that so many of these action camera companies are really starting to make a name for themselves. And it's funny because SJCAM, and I'm not affiliated with SJCAM or with any of these other action camera companies in any way, shape, or form. They were one of the first ones to really pay attention to firmware and to compete and really refine the firmwares to squeeze out all of this added benefits for us, the consumers, as far as image quality. And they have now made a name for themselves. There was an article in the Yahoo Finance about 2 weeks ago that talked specifically about SJCAM and how it competes with GoPro, and how SJCAM has really made a brand name for itself. Now, the same can be said for Hawkeye Firefly. It is a brand that has made a name for itself, and it's stuck around, and they are also refining firmware. ThiEYE is now a name brand that has got a great reputation. So we've got action camera companies that are coming to market that are staying around for a long time. And one thing I do want to address is, you can go to a site like Alibaba, and they have generic action cameras that will shoot 1080 or their interpolated 4K, and you can get those in bulk for $14 a piece if you buy X amount, or $26 a piece if you buy 200 or 300. And the thing about, and there's nothing wrong with that, because it gives everybody an opportunity. But when you find an action camera that has an off-brand name to it, and it's a name that you've never heard before, keep in mind that Alibaba will actually make and silk screen you a faceplate with your custom logo and your custom company name on a generic action camera that will have no further firmware updates. So that's something to be wary of. So there is a saying that, you know, you kind of get what you pay for. And when it comes to GoPro, you definitely get what you pay for. You get a high quality camera, high quality image. But these other action cameras are now starting to offer the exact same thing. High quality camera, high quality image, but for a fraction, if not, sometimes it's half, sometimes it's 60% less expensive than a GoPro. And you have to kind of keep that in mind. So when you're looking for action cameras and you see this action camera, and I'm just gonna make up a name, let's say Chlorine 1. I say chlorine because I'm looking at a chlorine bucket right now. Let's say Chlorine 1 comes out with this action camera, 4K, 30 frames a second. You never heard of the camera before, but it's on sale on Amazon for $49. Be careful, because that company, even though they may have a website, may not have zero support regarding an engineering department that deals with firmware, because they get the firmware with the camera straight from sources like Alibaba. And this is not a bash against Alibaba. They are a great company that offers mass production, and most of the time you can get a decent action camera on the cheap. But I just wanted to talk about state of affairs of action cameras in 2018, because I think there is a lot for us, the consumers, to pay attention to in the upcoming months. It's May right now, so we've got June, July, August, September, all great months for action camera and sports and going to the lake or going to the beach or vacation or jumping into the pool. I'm about to get mine ready hopefully by next weekend so that we can start taking advantage of it. But now that the summer is coming up, I think we're gonna see a lot of offerings. Like I told you, SJCAM with the SJ8 PRO, Hawkeye Firefly with the Firefly X that's coming out, the rumored new camera from ThiEYE. It's a lot of good things for us, the consumers. So I think it's a great thing overall. And I'd like to hear your opinion because, you know, some of these action camera companies that I just mentioned, SJCAM, ThiEYE, Hawkeye Firefly, they actually do watch this channel and they do look at the comments in it. So if there's a comment of something that you would really, really like, something that's most important to you. Now, please keep in mind, I know a lot of people have made comments on my videos of all these action cameras that I've done over the last 2 years saying low light performance, low light performance. I'm gonna just show you just a little clip. This is the size of a sensor in these little action cameras. It is hard to gather a lot of light in such a small little sensor. And the only way that these companies are able to offer you great or better low light performance is to slow down the frame rate. When you slow down the frame rate, it allows each frame to have a little bit more opportunity to gather in a little bit more light, and the frame rate will fluctuate. And the end result is, yes, you have a lighter image. Yes, it's going to have more noise in it because the sensor's just not big enough. And second off, you're going to have stuttery looking footage, especially if you're moving the camera. But anyway, that was just my little 2 cents or my 2 thoughts or a couple of thoughts regarding 2018 and what the action camera market is going to have to bring for us consumers, and it's a really exciting time.
And as always, thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up and be sure to share it. And also, if you have a question, comment below because I respond to all comments. And if you're not a subscriber, be sure to subscribe today and click on the bell so you'll be notified every time I upload a video.